Helios uses AI to translate climate and economic risk signals into actionable insights. I caught up with the company here at the World Agri-Tech Summit in London to find out how it all works.
So at its core, we predict the prices and climate risk of 75 agricultural commodities across 90 countries. We really work for procurement teams. We want to make your life easier so we can tell you when to buy, how much to buy, where to buy from. We have over 500 billion climate risk data points that are updated every 24 hours. We've now ingested all of the USDA reports, so we vectorized 40,000 of those reports, plus all the other government agencies. We have over 2,000 price series and price forecasts. We scrape 250,000 news sources globally every 15 minutes. We've also vectorized that to make it available. So it really is a huge data engineering platform in addition to the work we do.
So I feel like over the years there's been a few kind of ag insights startups, some of them referring to using AI, and some of them have also kind of struggled to deliver. What are you doing that's different?
I think there's a lot of folks that do climate risk well, but they never do any price forecasting. And none of the people who do price forecasting ever do climate risk. And so we're the first company ever to do both climate risk and price forecasting, which is what we're hearing the market wants now. You want that single platform that can give you all of the information, all of the insights that you need to have a full procurement process, rather than having 3 or 4 or 10 different vendors that you'd have to go to.
Okay, so tell me a bit more about this price forecasting and commodity kind of intel tools. Where are these most needed? Something like more kind of soft commodities, or?
It's really interesting, right? Because you have your exchange traded commodities that we cover, right? Corn, soy, wheat, etc. But we also have another 67 commodities that we call specialty crops, right? Tomatoes and blueberries and raspberries and mangoes and all that stuff globally that we cover. And so that to us is one of the most interesting markets that is typically underreported, under-resourced, and yet makes up the majority of the food that we eat.
So in what form and at what frequency do customers kind of want information from you so that it's actionable? Do they want a dashboard, a report, a risk rating, or someone to chat with?
Yeah, they want reports, they want someone to chat with, we can talk about that. They want an API sometimes, they want our dashboard. You want it every 24 hours. Really, I mean, especially things are changing so fast that you want that information to be able to make those decisions. Depending on how large you are and how nimble you are, sometimes you can make those decisions relatively quickly and figure out, hey, maybe we should buy more over the next 3 months. If you're a larger, Fortune 100, maybe you need 6 months at least before you're able to make those decisions. And so we really are able to give you kind of those forecasts 12 months out on the platform. And so you're able to use those depending on how large of a company you are, how nimble you are to make those decisions.
So some of the companies, some of the customers that you're working with, what were they doing before? How historically have they kind of got this information and these insights?
This was one of the most interesting questions we had when we started the company. People were just calling a bunch of other people. We spoke recently to a Fortune 10, the largest or second largest buyer of fruits and vegetables in the world. And we said, well, it probably takes you 24 hours to get on the phone with a Bloomberg analyst or an S&P Global analyst. And they said, we never get on the phone, even though they have this plan. And so a lot of the time you were just looking at a lot of these qualitative reports, you were calling your networks, you were flying to your supplier, and you were trying to piece it all together. Before Helios, there wasn't really that single platform that could give you all of those insights and really free you up to do more of your core work rather than risk management a lot of the time.
Okay, so you have launched something recently, Helios Horizon, described as a chat-based analyst. What is that?
Yeah, we love Helios Horizon. It's actually, from a technical perspective, it's this multi-agent platform, which sounds like gobbledygook, if you're not technical. It's basically think of 20 different analysts that we've created, right? One does climate risk, one does economic risk, one does news risk, one does geopolitical risk, etc. And what Helios Horizon does is you'll ask it a question like, what is the price of New York Arabica coffee going to be in 6 months? What is the price of mangoes going to be? What is the climate risk going to be in Indonesia for pineapples? And it'll look at the question and it'll figure out what the different steps are. And then in a couple of minutes, it'll give you an answer that directly gives you, what is the risk, when should you buy, how much should you buy, how it can help you. So these are tasks and analyses that would have taken weeks before, and now it takes you a couple of minutes.
So you've got these AI agents that are going sort of doing this work for you.
Yeah, and you use different agents depending on the question you're asking, which is the coolest part. Yeah.
Okay. So going back to your platform, how have you actually validated your platform? And you say it's more accurate than some other models. Can you give some examples? How do you know?
Yeah, for prices, we're 5 to 20 times more accurate than the industry standard. We did it the traditional data science way, so you have 10 years of data, you train your model on 9 years, and then you test it on 1 year. We rebuilt a lot of the industry standard models, and then we compare them to our own. And how close we are to forecasting that price, what we call the error rate, if you will, that's what drives our accuracy ratings. And then for all our climate risk disruptions, we've identified 90% of all the disruptions that have happened for all 75 of the agricultural commodities we cover, which is unprecedented. We look at it from a back testing perspective and say, all right, well, here are all the disruptions that have occurred. How many did our platform cover? We saved, Libby's is the second largest buyer of mandarins and pineapples in the United States. We saved them 15% on their cost of goods sold for mandarins because we had predicted a pretty significant increase in mandarin prices months before the market did it. So they were able to kind of buy more and buy earlier than they would have otherwise, getting that extra 15% on their bottom line. You're pulling all of these different data points and data sources in a way that gives you the insight that is, hey, we think the price of mandarins coming from China is going to increase pretty dramatically in 6 months. Here's why. And so it's always giving you that transparency about here's why we think that this is going to happen. And then you as a procurement specialist are able to use that information as you see fit. I think one of the more interesting questions we talk to with these larger organizations is, we've spent tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars of CapEx building out these logistics facilities, transportation facilities, processing facilities. Am I going to be able to get my barley from the same place 5 and 10 years from now? If not, where should I start to build out that infrastructure and those relationships? That's the core of kind of the climate and supplier audit. What's exciting about Helios Horizon now is that you don't have to necessarily come through us and ask that question. You can just go on the platform and say, am I still going to be able to get barley from this particular section in Brazil or this particular section in the United States 5 or 10 years from now? What's the risk look like? And get that answer back in a couple of minutes, which we're very excited about, right? So it's cannibalized our product a little bit, but we think that's the right thing to do for the customer.
Okay. Can you talk a bit about how the platform has evolved over time? Did you kind of nail it from the beginning, or did you go down any blind alleys or make some mistakes?
Oh yeah, we did go through a couple of blind alleys. We were very lucky when we first started the company. We had a very large enterprise customer, and their view of the market was very supplier specific. They said, can you give me the individual risks for all of my suppliers? And so we built our initial MVP around that. We took it to market, and what people said is, I know my suppliers really well. What I don't know is the rest of the market.
Yes.
So can you build out the platform and tell me what the rest of the world is doing? And that was a huge pivot for us, where it became much less about your supply chain, period, rather your supply chain in the broader global context. That was really helpful for us. We officially started 2 years ago this September, so 2-year anniversary. We were really lucky. We've had a lot of support from the VC community. We raised our $3 million pre-seed from Supply Chain Capital as the lead, and we've just announced our seed raise for $5 million led by Clyde Capital and S&P Global Ventures, which for us is a really nice market indicator that what we've built in Horizon, what we've built in the platform, this is the wave of the future, right? This is how people are going to engage with virtual analysts and get the insights that they need, custom insights at scale, which has never happened before. And we were very lucky to win Walmart's Open Call last year. Yes. They've been a wonderful partner and customer for us. We have a lot of other kind of big contracts. We can't typically talk about our customer names because they get very angry with us, so we don't. But I think the commercial traction is really helpful, and in the fact that we were doing something in a market that hadn't been done before. That's just us specifically, but then the broader momentum, if you're a procurement manager, if you're a procurement analyst in the food supply chain, this is the worst time in your professional career. You are dealing with, it used to be you would deal with a disruption once every couple of years, then it became once a year, now it's multiple times a year across different regions and different crops. You need help. And so that's been a huge boon for us.